pinpointing what started the Dance of the Dragons is a difficult and complex task, with it very much being dependent on the sources you believe and the narrative you construct with them. You could argue that the stray crossbow bolt that killed Prince Aemond Targaryen, the eldest son and heir of King Jaehaerys in 92 AC, set the realm on a path to civil war, or perhaps the day King Viserys named Rhaenyra his heir. There are a dozen or so events that you could argue were the cause, but one thing is undeniable: there is one single event that turned the Dance of the Dragons from a war of words to a war of fire and blood. Any hope that there could be a peaceful solution gone in an instant. One moment that would change Westeros and House Targaryen forever. During the first few months of what would become the Dance of the Dragons, both King Aegon II and his Greens and Queen Rhaenyra's Blacks began to seek support for their cause from the Lords of Westeros, as both understood that their dragons alone would not determine who would come out victorious. Both sought to secure alliances with Storm's End, and thus with them the Stormlands. That meant dealing with Lord Borys Baratheon. Within days of King Viserys' death, Dowager Queen Alicent Hightower sent her second son, Prince Aemond Targaryen, and his dragon Vhagar to Storm's End to propose a betrothal between himself and one of Borys's 4 young daughters, to secure them the alliance of House Baratheon. Aemond was uncertain how he would be received, given Lord Borys was kin to a member of the Blacks, but much to his surprise he found a warm welcome at Storm's End, where Borys hosted him with feasts, hunts and jousts. Aemond remained at Storm's End for a while, negotiating with Borys, during which time Lord Borys, feeling Rhaenyra had taken House Baratheon for granted for too long, given that she had not sent an envoy with haste, suggested to Borys that they were taking his support for granted, so he agreed on a betrothal and gave Aemond a choice from all 4 of his daughters. The Blacks remained unaware of Aemond's presence at the Baratheon stronghold, despite all the grand events patroned by Lord Borys, which has surprised many historians in hindsight. Princess Rhaenys Targaryen, the queen who never was, believed that Borys would support Rhaenyra, as Rhaenyra's uncle and Borys's father, Aemond, had always been a staunch supporter of Rhaenys and her son Laenor's claim to the Iron Throne in years prior. Because they believed that the envoy would receive a warm welcome, and Storm's End was relatively close to Dragonstone, Rhaenyra agreed to send her second son, Prince Lucerys Velaryon, as her envoy to personally deliver a message from her to Lord Borys. Lucerys Velaryon arrived at Storm's End before a gathering storm was blowing in from Shipbreaker Bay, the winds so strong that his young dragon Arrax struggled somewhat to fly. As Arrax landed on the outer wall of Storm's End, Lucerys was greeted by the sight of the huge dragon Vhagar. He must have surely have understood what the presence of Vhagar meant. By the time Lucerys arrived, Aemond had chosen his bride, and he and Borys had already agreed the betrothal, but were still haggling over the dates of the marriage and dowries to be paid. Lucerys, dripping wet from the rain, found Aemond in the round hall, together with Lord Borys and all 4 of his daughters, Cassandra, Maris, Floris and Ellen. Borys's septons and maesters and 20 knights, guards and servants, as well as many lords of the Stormlands, were also present, which is why the events that followed are so well documented. "Look at this sad creature, my lord," Prince Aemond called out to his nephew. "Little Luke Strong, the bastard. You're a wet bastard. Is it raining, or did you piss yourself in fear?" Lucerys addressed himself only to Lord Baratheon, ignoring his uncle's remarks. "Lord Borys, I have brought you a message from my mother, the Queen. The Whore of Dragonstone, he means," Aemond said as he strode forward and made to grab the letter from Lucerys' hand. But Borys roared and commanded his knights to intervene, pulling the 2 princes apart. One brought Rhaenyra's letter to Borys, where his lordship sat upon the throne of the old Storm Kings. No man can truly know what Borys Baratheon was feeling at this time. The accounts of those who were there differ markedly one from the other. Some say his lordship was red-faced and abashed, as a man might be if his lawful wife found him abed with another woman. Others declared that Borys appeared to be relishing the moment, for it pleased his vanity to have both king and queen seeking his support. All the witnesses agree on one thing, on what Lord Borys said and did. Borys couldn't read, so he handed the queen's letter to his maester, who cracked the seal and whispered a message into his lordship's ear. Instantly, a frown appeared across Lord Borys's face. He stroked his beard slowly, scowling at Lucerys Velaryon, and said, "And if I do as your mother bids, Which one of my daughters will you marry, boy? Lucerys could only blush. My lord, I am not free to marry. I am betrothed to my cousin Rhaena. I thought as much, Lord Boros said. Go home, pup, and tell your mother that the Lord of Storm's End is not a dog that she can whistle up at need to set against her foes. Prince Lucerys turned to take his leave of the Round Hall, but Prince Aemond drew his sword and said, Hold on, Strong. First, pay the debt you owe me. Then he tore off his eye patch and flung it to the floor to show the sapphire beneath. You have a knife, just as you did back then. Put out your eye, and I will let you leave. One will serve. I do not wish to blind you. Prince Lucerys recalled the promise he had made to his mother, and told his uncle he was not there to fight, and that he came there as an envoy. You came here as a craven and a traitor, Prince Aemond answered, and I will have your eye or your life, Strong. At that, Boros grew uneasy. Not here, he grumbled. I want no blood shed under my roof. So his guards put themselves between the two princes and escorted the younger from the Round Hall back to the castle yard where Arrax was waiting for him, hunched in the rain, waiting for his return. And there it might have ended. There it should have ended. But for the girl Maris, the second daughter of Lord Boros, less comely than her sisters. She was angry at Aemond for preferring them to her. Was it one of your eyes he took, or one of your balls? Maris said, in a tone as sweet as honey. I'm glad you chose my sister. I want a husband with all of his parts. Aemond Targaryen's mouth twisted in rage as he turned once more to Lord Boros, asking for his leave. The Lord of Storm's End shrugged and answered, It's not for me to tell you what to do when you are not beneath my roof. And his knights moved aside as Prince Aemond rushed to the door. Outside, the storm was raging. Thunder rolled across the castle, rain falling in a blinding sheet, and from time to time, great bolts of blue-white lightning lit the world as bright as day. It was horrendous weather, even for a dragon, and Arrax was struggling to stay aloft when Prince Aemond mounted his dragon Vhagar and went after him. Had the sky been calm, Prince Lucerys probably could have outflied his pursuer, as Arrax was younger, smaller and swifter. So it came to pass that dragon met dragon above Shipbreaker Bay. Watchers on the castle walls saw distant blasts of flame and heard shrieks that cut the thunder. Then the two beasts were locked together, lightning crackling around them. Vhagar was 5 times the size of her foe, the hardened survivor of 100 battles. If there was a fight, it could not have lasted long. Arrax fell, broken, to be swallowed by the storm-lashed waters of the bay. His head and neck washed up beneath the cliffs below Storm's End 3 days later, to make a feast for crabs and seagulls. Some claim that Prince Lucerys' corpse also washed up, and that Aemond cut out his eyes as a present for Lady Maris on the bed of seaweed, but this seems excessive, and there's no real proof for it. Some say Vhagar snatched Lucerys off his dragon's back and swallowed him whole. It has ever been claimed that the prince survived the fall, swam to safety, but lost all memory of who he was, spending the rest of his days as a simple-minded fisherman. The last of these scenarios definitely seems the most unlikely to be true, but one thing we do know to be true is this. That short, bloody fight above Shipbreaker Bay between Arrax and Vhagar, Lucerys and Aemond, lit the flame of war, of one of the worst and most bloody wars Westeros would ever see. As in truth, the Dance of the Dragons now begun in earnest, and with the death of Lucerys, it set off a chain reaction. An eye for an eye. A son for a son.